One stolen password, no multi-factor. $4.4 million. That is what a fuel pipeline paid in ransom in the spring of 2021, and the attackers never broke a single piece of cryptography to earn it. They walked in through one old virtual private network account using a password that had leaked somewhere else, and that account was missing one specific control that would have stopped them cold at the door. Here is the part that catches people out. Adding a second password would not have been that control, and by the end you will know exactly why.
I'm Emma, and let me make the Colonial Pipeline detail precise because the precision is the lesson. The attackers, the group called Darkside, used valid credentials on an unused virtual private network profile that had no multi-factor authentication, one reused password, no second factor, and the gasoline supply for the southeastern United States stopped flowing.
I am Erica, and this is the whole heart of Objective 4.6. Multi-factor authentication is not a feature you bolt on for points. It is the single difference between a stolen password being a disaster and a stolen password being a shrug. And it starts with one idea the exam tests relentlessly. Authentication is built from factors, and there are exactly 4 of them.
4, and the order is worth memorizing as a phrase. Something you know, something you have, something you are, and somewhere you are.
Something you know is a password or a personal ID number, the factor in your head. Something you have is a physical token, a phone running an authenticator app, or a security key on your key ring.
Something you are is biometrics, your fingerprint or your face, the factor that is part of your body. And somewhere you are is your location, your network, or your GPS position, used as a contextual signal that you are where you should be.
Fenrir here, and I am going to stop you on the word multi before anyone gets comfortable. If I make a user enter a password and then a second password, that is 2 things. Why is that not multi-factor?
Because they are the same factor twice. Both are something you know, so one phishing email, one leaked database, one shoulder surf, and both fall together. True multi-factor demands factors of different types so that compromising one does nothing to the other. A password plus a code from your phone is know plus have, and an attacker on the far side of the internet has your password but not your phone.
So 2 passwords is 1 factor wearing 2 hats. That actually answers it. The defense only works when the factors fail independently.
And that independence is the exact line CompTIA tests. A password and a security question are both something you know, so a question like that is testing whether you can spot the fake multi-factor. 2 of the same factor is not multi-factor, it is single factor with extra steps.
Lock that in, because everything we build today rides on it. Colonial Pipeline had something you know and nothing else. Add a second, different factor, and that whole attack stops at the login screen. Emma, there is a question that lands under every single breach story, and I want to put it to the room before we open a terminal.
Yes, and it is the right place to start. The question people keep asking is this: if I just use one really long, really strong password, do I even need multi-factor at all? That confusion is exactly why this objective trips people up.
Hold that exact question because the whole episode answers it. We will open a real terminal and watch the second factor work, so the answer is something you see, not something you take on faith. Let us start with the most common second factor on Earth.
So let us make the have factor concrete, because most people use it every day and have no idea what is happening under the hood. The most common have factor on Earth is the 6-digit code in an authenticator app. It is called TOTP, time-based one-time password, and it is defined in a public standard, RFC 6238. Here is the mental model before we run anything. When you scan that QR code to set up an app, you are not downloading magic. The QR code is just handing your phone one thing, a shared secret, a random string both the server and your phone now know.
Then it is a 6-digit code, and the trick is that it changes every 30 seconds. Both sides take that one shared secret, mix in the current time, hash them together, and chop the result down to 6 digits. Same secret plus same clock equals the same 6 digits on both ends, no message ever sent between them.
Theory is where most courses stop. We are going to actually do it. Everything from here runs in an isolated lab so you can watch the mechanics purely to understand how to deploy and defend it. First, let me generate that shared secret, the thing the QR code would carry.
So that random base 32 string is the whole shared secret. Everything else is built on top of those 16 characters.
That is the entire secret. The provisioning URL your app actually scans wraps it with a label and an issuer, and it looks like this. Notice it carries the secret, the algorithm, and the period, 30 seconds right in the open.
Now generate the actual code the way the app does it every 30 seconds. Same secret, current time. And there it is rolling. 284619, then 30 seconds later, 751093. The server, running the identical secret against the identical clock, computes the very same number and checks that yours matches. No secret crossed the wire just now, which is the whole elegance of it.
And catch why that design is strong. The code is one time and it expires in seconds, so even if an attacker shoulder surfs the number you typed, it is dead almost immediately. Let me decode what the code actually proves, because the exam often probes it. Typing a valid TOTP proves you possess the device holding that secret. That is the have factor, full stop. Now the device can be a soft token, an app like Google Authenticator or Authy on your phone, or a hard token, a dedicated key fob with a tiny screen that displays the rolling number.
Soft token versus hard token is a clean exam distinction. Soft token, software on a general device you already carry. Hard token, dedicated hardware whose only job is the code. The hard token is harder to compromise remotely because there is no operating system on it to hack. But the soft token is free and everyone already has the phone.
So press on the weak end of this. People say just text me the code. Is an SMS code multi-factor or not?
It is multi-factor, and it is the weakest kind, and the exam wants you to know both halves of that. An SMS code is still something you have, your phone number, so it genuinely counts. But a phone number can be hijacked through a SIM swap, where an attacker convinces the carrier to move your number to their own device, and then the codes flow to them. So SMS is far better than nothing and far worse than an app or a key. When a question offers a choice, the app or the security key is the stronger answer.
There is a clarifier the panel keeps getting in the comments on exactly this, and it is worth pausing on. Fenrir, you raised your hand, put it to us plainly.
Happy to. Here is the question students keep mixing up. If the OTPauth secret is sitting right there in the QR code in plain text, what actually stops an attacker from just generating my codes too?
Sharp question, and the answer is custody. The secret is only exposed for the one instant you set it up, in your own hands, then it is gone. After that it lives encrypted on the server and inside your phone, and it is never transmitted again. An attacker on the internet never sees that QR code. To steal the secret they would need your unlocked phone or a breach of the server, which is a completely different and much harder attack than phishing a password. Stick around, because in the next scene we meet the one factor that survives even when you do hand it over.
Perfect frame. So the have factor is solved, but it is not the strongest thing in the room. In the next scene, we pick up the factor an attacker genuinely cannot phish, even if they trick you into typing it. One thing before the next part, and then we move right on. If any of this is clicking, tap that like, hit subscribe, and ring the bell for the next one. It takes a second, it costs nothing, and it helps more than you would think.
Here is the uncomfortable truth about the TOTP we just built. It is good, but it is still phishable. If an attacker spins up a convincing fake login page, you will read your 6 digits off your app and type them straight into their hands, and they will relay them to the real site within the 30-second window.
So the factor was strong, and the human handed it over anyway. The attacker never had to break anything.
Exactly, and the gold standard fixes precisely that hole. It is the hardware security key, and the magic word the exam loves is phishing resistant. Let me show you the actual object, because seeing it is half the lesson.
That little thing, a USB fob with a gold touchpad, that is what governments call the highest assurance level?
That little thing, it runs an open standard called FIDO2, and FIDO2 is really two pieces working together. WebAuthn is the part your browser speaks, and CTAP, the client-to-authenticator protocol, is how the browser talks to the key. You touch the gold pad to prove a human is present, and the key does the rest with public key cryptography.
And the reason it cannot be phished is mechanical, not a warning label. When the key registers, it generates a key pair bound to that exact website's domain. At login, the site sends a challenge, and the key signs it only if the domain matches the one it was registered to.
Stop. So on a lookalike phishing domain, the key just refuses to sign?
It simply will not sign for the wrong domain. The fake site is not the registered origin, so there is no valid signature to steal. The phishing attack has no surface to grab at all. Type a code into a fake site and you have handed it over, but a key cannot be tricked that way. That is the entire difference between phishing resistant and merely strong, and it is why hardware keys can meet the strictest assurance level, what NIST calls AAL3.
There is a beautiful real-world proof of this. After Google rolled out FIDO security keys to its workforce of more than 85,000 people, it reported 0 successful account phishing takeovers. The factor that cannot be relayed simply closes the door.
Now the R factor, biometrics, because the exam tests its failure modes more than its successes. A fingerprint or a face is convenient and tough to steal remotely, but no biometric is perfect, so it lives on a tuning dial between two errors.
Two errors, named precisely. A false acceptance is the system letting in the wrong person, a security failure. A false rejection is the system locking out the right person, a usability failure, and the two trade against each other on a dial. Turn the sensitivity up, and you reject more legitimate users. Turn it down, and you accept more imposters.
And the single number that captures the trade-off is the crossover error rate, the point where the false acceptance rate and the false rejection rate are equal. A lower crossover error rate means a better, more accurate biometric overall. That term shows up on the exam, so file it. Lower crossover, better sensor.
So where does all of this land? If keys are phishing resistant and biometrics are convenient, why are we still typing passwords at all?
That is exactly the door the industry is walking through right now, and it has a name: passwordless.
Passwordless means the password is not just protected by a second factor, it is gone entirely. A passkey, which is a FIDO2 credential synced or stored on your device, replaces the password. You authenticate with the key plus a local gesture, your fingerprint or face or a PIN that never leaves the device. There is no shared secret on a server to steal, so there is nothing to phish and nothing to breach in bulk.
And that is the direction every framework now points. The strongest answer on the exam, when it is offered, is the phishing-resistant FIDO2 key or passkey, then an authenticator app, then SMS in that order. Memorize that ladder.
Now we hit the part of this objective that makes seasoned admins argue, because the official rules flipped on them. The modern password guidance comes from NIST Special Publication 863B, and it deliberately deleted advice you were trained to follow for 20 years.
Deleted is a strong word. You are telling me the rules I enforced for a career are now the wrong answer?
Some of them, yes, and that is exactly why we will settle it the honest way. Fenrir defends the world most organizations still run on, the complexity and rotation policy. Emma carries what the current NIST standard actually says. This matters because it is both an exam answer and a policy a security professional has to defend to a skeptical boss. Make your strongest cases.
Fine. The policy that ran the industry for 2 decades was not built by fools. Require an uppercase, a lowercase, a number, a symbol, force a change every 90 days, and ban reuse of the last few. It guarantees a baseline. Left to themselves, people pick the dog's name. Complexity rules drag the floor up, and rotation means a leaked password has a shelf life.
It sounds disciplined, and the research says it backfires. NIST 863b now states it plainly. Length is the dominant factor in password strength, not the zoo of special characters. A long passphrase like correct horse battery staple beats a short, ugly word stuffed with symbols that a cracking rig chews through, because the passphrase has far more total entropy.
Granted on length, but you cannot tell me forced rotation is bad. Changing passwords on a schedule is just basic hygiene.
That is the exact one the standard reversed.
Reversed. So now I am wrong for changing passwords. Make the case.
Here is the mechanism. When you force a human to change a password every 90 days, they do not invent a fresh, strong secret. They go from password 1 to password 2 to password 3. Predictable, incremental, and an attacker who cracks one can guess the next.
Password 1, password 2. I have audited that exact pattern in the wild. Go on, finish the case.
So the standard says verifiers shall not require periodic rotation unless there is actual evidence of compromise. Change it when something is wrong, not on a calendar. And it removes mandatory composition rules too, no forced symbol, because they push users toward predictable substitutions and sticky note behavior. What it requires instead is smarter. A minimum of 8 characters, support for at least 64, allow every character including spaces, and screen every new password against block lists of known breached and common passwords. Block the bad ones, stop punishing the good ones.
Let me weigh this honestly, because the exam wants the nuance, not a slogan. Fenrir is right that an unmanaged user base will choose weak passwords, so a baseline matters. But Emma has the current standard and the research squarely behind her, so the verdict is settled. NIST 863b is the authoritative source, and it says length over complexity, no forced rotation without a compromise signal, and screen against breach lists. On the exam, that is the correct answer every time.
I will concede it cleanly. The old policy felt rigorous and produced password 2. The standard wins, and I would rather be right than feel rigorous.
But there is an honest catch we owe the viewer. Long, unique, never rotated passwords sound great until you remember a real person has 100 accounts. No human memorizes 100 long random strings. So the advice only works with the right tool, and that tool deserves its own honest look.
The tool is a password manager, and it solves the exact problem we just created. Watch what it does. It generates a long, random, genuinely unique password for every single site, and remembers them all behind one strong master secret.
Fair, but you have not addressed my real worry. Now every password I own sits in one vault. Is that not just building one enormous target?
It is, and I will not pretend otherwise. A manager concentrates risk. That master password and the vault become a single high-value target, so you must protect them with a strong, unique master secret and multi-factor on top. Ideally one of those hardware keys from the last scene, but weigh it fairly. The alternative is reusing weak passwords everywhere, the exact thing that let one leaked credential shut a pipeline. A well-guarded vault is dramatically safer than that, so the honest verdict is, use a manager and guard it like the crown jewels.
And that balanced answer, name the trade-off then still make the call, is exactly the instinct CompTIA rewards. Almost never a silver bullet. Always the layered answer that owns its weakness honestly. Last block, and it is the one that protects the keys to the kingdom. Privileged Access Management, PAM. Everything so far guarded ordinary logins. PAM guards the admin accounts, the domain administrators, and root accounts an attacker actually wants, because owning one of those owns everything. And the core insight is brutal and simple. A standing admin account, one that is always on, always privileged, sitting there is a permanent target. It is the thing the Colonial Pipeline attackers were hunting for once they got inside. PAM shrinks that target down toward nothing.
It does it with 3 techniques the exam names directly. First, password vaulting. The privileged passwords are not known to humans or pasted into scripts. They live inside a secure, encrypted vault that checks them out, rotates them, and logs every use. An admin requests access, the vault brokers it, and nobody memorizes the root password.
Second, just-in-time access. And this is the heart of modern PAM. Instead of an account that is admin all day, every day, you have a normal account that gets elevated only for a specific task, for a specific window, then automatically dropped back down. Grant admin on this server for 30 minutes, then revoke it on the clock. No human cleanup required.
Third, ephemeral credentials, which is the part that sounds like science fiction until you watch it. A credential that is born for a single task and then destroyed, so there is nothing left to steal afterward. Let me show what that actually looks like.
10 minutes, and notice the credential is unique to this one request. It is not the standing root password, it is a one-off.
Right, and the token lives for exactly those 10 minutes. Now watch what the same token does once the window closes. It is gone. The credential that worked a minute ago is now dead and revoked. An attacker who steals that token tomorrow steals a corpse. There is nothing standing to compromise.
A viewer who runs infrastructure asked whether this actually holds up at scale or whether it is just a vendor slide, so we called someone who works in privileged access defense and knows the field cold. Professor Okafor, can you hear us? Does zero standing privilege really change the math for a defender?
I can hear you, thanks for having me. It changes it more than almost anything else you can do. The whole game for an attacker after they get a foothold is to find a standing privileged account and ride it. When every privileged credential is just in time and ephemeral, that window collapses from months of opportunity down to minutes. There is simply nothing sitting around to find.
So be honest with us about the cost. This cannot be free. What is the catch a real team runs into?
That is fair, and it is real. The catch is operational friction and a hard dependency. If your PAM system goes down, legitimate admins cannot get in to fix things, so you need break glass procedures and solid availability. And teams resist it at first because asking for access every time feels slower than always having it. But that friction is the entire point. Standing access is convenient for your admins and just as convenient for an attacker wearing their account. If I leave your viewers with one thought, it is this. Convenience for the admin is convenience for the intruder every time. Thanks again for having me on. This was a good one.
That is an honest answer. Friction is the feature, and we will let you go. Thank you, Professor Okafor.
And that ties the whole objective into one sentence. The phrase the exam is reaching for is zero standing privilege. No identity holds permanent admin rights. Access is granted dynamically through just-in-time elevation served by ephemeral credentials out of a vault, and revoked the instant the task is done.
Put the whole episode together, and it is one idea at 4 scales. Add a different factor, prefer a phishing-resistant key, store the password long and unique in a guarded vault, and make privileged access something that exists for 10 minutes and then dies.
If today leaves you with a single rule, make it this one. A stolen password is only a catastrophe when it is the last thing standing in the way, so never let it be the last thing. Each layer we built breaks a different part of the attack that shut down a pipeline. So here is the one idea to carry out of Objective 4.6. Mix factor types for real multi-factor. Prefer a phishing-resistant key, and let length and a guarded vault carry your passwords.
And future you will thank present you for one small move tonight. Open your email settings and turn on an authenticator app, or better, a hardware key, because email is the account that resets all the others.
Next episode, the one alert that quarantines a hacked machine before a human even reads it. We go from who gets in to how a whole operation defends itself at machine speed, automation, orchestration, and SOAR.
If the 4 factors finally clicked, hit like and subscribe because we are building the entire SY0701 objective list into one free series.
And here is the one only you can answer. Right now, is your email account protected by a second factor, and is it a phishing-resistant one? Tell us in the comments where you stand.
Correlation is cheap. Mechanism is what pays the bill. See you next time.
Nova, you made the material do what it is supposed to do. Stick. 9 out of 10. This is Professor Erica. Thanks for watching and signing off.